If you ever feel like your life is unlucky, just think about our protagonist in today's story. Today, our protagonist, Zhang Dali, is 18 years old, dirt poor. His mother passed away early, and his father is an alcoholic who is broke as a joke. He just got dumped by his girlfriend and even has a terminal illness about to kick the bucket. You think that's tragic enough? Not even close, because in this world, there is no such thing as enough. Tragedy, especially for scammers who would never pass up a desperate person. Right at his lowest point, the protagonist was conned by an old man. A fortune teller tricked him into buying a cheat system for just a few baked buns. Before he could understand what was happening, Zhang Dali was given a shove by the old man, and somehow that push sent him straight to a cultivation world. He thought, like other isekai'd protagonists, his life would change for the better, but Zhang Dali ended up with a troll system that upon appearing immediately wished for its host to die so it could get a new one. It forced him to do countless embarrassing quests. On top of that, during the entrance exam, he only had Spirit Condensation Level 0 and could only join the sanitation class. His job was cleaning the entire campus, but our protagonist wasn't discouraged by the difficulty. He was determined to make the system kneel and call him Master, rising to the top of the Myriad Races Cultivation Academy and making everyone look up to him. The journey of this young man. Where will it lead? Join us at Tho Nok Studio to find out in the series, All My Attributes Are Maxed Out on Strength. In a glamorous and wealthy modern city, an old fortune teller was relentlessly pestering a young man to buy a cheat that could rapidly increase his cultivation level, make him a great protector, become the head instructor, marry a second-generation immortal, and set him on the path to the absolute peak. The young man being pestered was our protagonist, Zhang Dali. He looked at the old man who reeked of a pyramid scheme, and immediately thought he was a fraud. Zhang Dali scornfully cursed psycho and turned to leave, but the old fortune teller continued to hold him back. Zhang Dali, so angry his blood was boiling, snapped and asked what else he wanted. The fortune teller's words made the protagonist freeze in his tracks. The old man said the protagonist's name was Zhang Dali. He was stronger than others since childhood, ate a lot, was poor for 18 generations, and his mother died early. His father was an alcoholic. His family was dirt poor. He had just gotten into a third-rate university today, and yesterday his girlfriend of 3 years called to dump him. Even worse, he had just discovered he had a terminal illness. So he decided to buy a bun before he died, hoping to eat one last full meal before ending his life. Zhang Dali was chewing on the baked bun, his eyes welling up with tears, as he listened to this fortune teller recount his miserable life story. He asked the old man how he knew all this. The old man stroked his beard calmly and asked back, "Was I right?" Zhang Dali immediately replied, "Yes, you were right about every single word." The old man then asked, "Does the baked bun still smell good?" Zhang Dali looked at the cheap, nearly finished bun in his hand and said, "Not anymore." Without any hesitation, the fortune teller snatched the baked bun from Zhang Dali's hand and told him he would be given a peerless opportunity that could help him increase his cultivation level, become a great protector, serve as the head instructor, marry a second-generation immortal, and step onto the peak of cultivation, completely changing his destiny. It was the same pyramid scheme pitch as before, but this time the protagonist listened as if he was hearing the gospel truth. The old man asked, "Do you want this opportunity?" The protagonist thought for a moment and then made up his mind. Full of excitement, he said, "I want it. I want to reach the pinnacle of life. I want to defy the heavens and change my fate." The fortune teller chewed on the bun while hyping him up, exclaiming that Zhang Dali was a diamond in the rough. Then the old man took out a yellow bundle from under the table. "This is the cheat system I've spent years collecting." He opened the bundle, placed several sparkling golden tokens on the table, and told Trong Dai Luke to pick one. Trong Dai Luke pointed at the pile of cheat items, skeptical that these toys were some kind of cheat system. The old man picked his nose and sneered that Trong Dai Luke was still young and naive. These were all god-tier cheats that famous protagonists like Tu Quit had used. Once you choose one, you inherit the protagonist's destiny and cheat abilities, allowing you to instantly reach the pinnacle of life. Although Truong Dai Luke had no idea who this Tu Quit was, hearing the old man's pitch made his eyes sparkle. Was it really that OP in that case? He had to pick one. Trong Dai Luke weighed his options for a moment, Clairvoyance seemed too generic, the kind of starter skill a newbie protagonist would get. Zhang Dali then touched another token. This reincarnation one didn't seem too bad, being reborn in a new world, with no regrets. But then he thought reincarnation his life was so bland that even being reborn wouldn't make a difference. So he picked up another token. This one had an old man engraved on it. Zhang Dali imagined some old geezer with a long white beard and shuddered, too risky not for him. Suddenly, Zhang Dali saw a token. In the corner with the word system on it, Truong Dai. Luke joyfully picked it up with a system in hand. The whole world is yours, plus you don't even need to try. The system automatically helps you level up to the top. The old fortune teller saw that Zhang Dali had found the one he wanted and asked if he had chosen the old man, then dropped an ominous line: pick one and stick with it. No take-backsies. Zhang Dali was too busy with his power fantasy to notice the old man's words. He held out the token and said he chose the system. The old man gave a mysterious smile and said he had a good eye. The system was the latest trend. A lot of main characters use it. He looked seriously at Zhang Dali and told him to go. Before Zhang Dali could understand what was happening, the old man gave him a push, and he fell into an endless blue vortex. Watching Zhang Dali get sucked in, the old fortune teller casually munched on a pastry. He sighed. Times are tough these days. It's not easy to scam someone for a pastry. Zhang Dali was pulled into the endless vortex. He had no idea where he was when he came to. He was already plummeting towards the ocean at an incredible speed. The waves washed Zhang Dali ashore. He lay face down in the sand before slowly sitting up. Zhang Dali coughed violently for a few seconds, spitting out water. He turned to check his surroundings, and right before his eyes were several long-legged beauties who were absolutely stacked happily. Playing in the water, Zhang Dali looked at this new world and felt like he had been isekai'd to paradise. This place is amazing. This cheat ability is on a whole other level. He had never seen so many bombshells in his entire life. While he was busy admiring the paradise before him, a voice from below suddenly asked Zhang Dali if he was a pervert. Zhang Dali glanced down to see a red-haired girl blushing furiously while buried in the sand, and his hand just so happened to be resting on her ample chest. Zhang Dali panicked. He quickly pulled his hand back and tried to explain that he literally fell from the sky. The red-haired girl misunderstood his meaning, labeling Zhang Dali as a pervert who fell from the heavens. Zhang Dali was helpless, not knowing how to explain. Suddenly, the sand around the red-haired girl burst apart. She sat up and without hesitation kicked him right in the face, knocking Zhang Dali unconscious. This red-haired girl was just as stunning as the others. She grabbed a towel to wrap around herself and shouted a warning to her friends swimming in the distance that there was a total creep over here. The other girls in the distance heard the warning, and their faces paled, scrambling to put their clothes back on as they climbed out of the water. A moment later, Zhang Dali came to finding himself surrounded by beautiful maidens who were glaring at him and debating his fate. They admitted he was handsome, but being a pervert meant his hands had to be chopped off. As Zhang Dali slowly regained his senses, he looked around. He took in the situation. Before him stood a group of beautiful maidens radiating a murderous aura as they stared down at him. One of the maidens spoke to Miss Zhang, the one who had just struck him, asking if she should be forced to marry him now. Since he had seen everything, the beautiful Miss Zhang was furious. How could she possibly marry a creep like him? Zhang Dali. He insisted that he wasn't a pervert. Miss Zhang gritted her teeth, demanding to know what he was doing there. Zhang Dali completely froze up, his mind a blank slate. What was he doing here anyway? Suddenly, he remembered everything. His cheat skill, his system. Zhang Dali called out, asking if the system was there. The system lazily replied from the void. Nope. Zhang Dali snapped out of it, realizing the deception. He puffed his cheeks in anger and raised a fist, threatening, "Son of a... If you're not here who's talking, get out here and help me." The system couldn't be bothered. It said the trouble Zhang Dali was in was too big and he was about to die anyway, so it would be getting a new host soon. He was furious, cursing, "Damn it, I need a system precisely because I'm in trouble." While busy arguing with his system, Zhang Dali suddenly remembered the dire situation before him, he felt like he had aged a decade in an instant, his life about to be snuffed out. In front of him, a muscular maiden stepped forward. She told Miss Zhang to let her be the one to castrate this degenerate Zhang Dali. This powerful maiden was none other than Xiong Mei Li, whose nickname was Beautiful Bear. Miss Xiong was truly a magnificent specimen of a woman. She drew a small knife and stepped forward. Zhang Dali was so scared, tears streamed down his face as he trembled uncontrollably, pleading, "Ladies, let's talk this through. It's a genuine misunderstanding." But Beautiful Bear was having none of it. She raised the knife towards Zhang Dali, declaring that even if he called her his grandma, it would be useless. Desperate, Zhang Dali continued to curse his system, demanding it open the user interface or else he'd hunt down the old geezer who scammed him. Immediately, a status window popped up in front of him. Before he could sync with the system, Zhang Dali needed to complete a quest. The quest was to say, "I love you," 10 times to the girl in front of him. Zhang Dali was baffled he still had to complete a quest at a time like this. The system explained that by completing the current mission he would instantly sync with his life-changing cheat system. Zhang Dali looked at the magnificent Miss Xiong before him. He had to say, "I love you," 10 times to a woman who could snap his neck without breaking a sweat. He'd rather die. Just then, Xiong Mei Li summoned a fire dragon determined to get rid of his precious family jewels. Zhang Dali tried to stall for time, asking if they could please reconsider, but sadly it was no use. Xiong Mei Li wasn't listening. She ferociously swung the knife towards Zhang Dali, watching the blade get closer and closer to the source of his future happiness. Zhang Dali squeezed his eyes shut and screamed one sentence, "I love you." As expected, the knife stopped. Xiong Mei Li froze for a second, her face turning red. She asked what he had just said. Zhang Dali screamed, "I love you." Once more, Xiong Mei Li still thought she must have misheard him. Zhang Dali clenched his fists and yelled, "I love you," 3 more consecutive times. This time, there was no room for doubt. Xiong Mei Li felt as if every word from Zhang Dali was a Cupid's arrow piercing straight through her heart, rendering her unable to move. The other maidens standing on the sidelines also blushed in surprise. Miss Zhang couldn't believe her own eyes and ears. "Is that for real?" Another girl behind them commented admiringly. "Whether it's true or not, he's incredibly brave. Saying, 'I love you' to Xiong Mei Li is a fate worse than death." Xiong Mei Li was lost in a blissful daze with pink hearts fluttering in her mind. But then she snapped back to reality. She couldn't believe the words coming from this man. Xiong Mei Li raised her blade again and charged toward Zhang Dali to strike. Seeing the raging bear hurtling towards him, a trembling Zhang Dali blurted out, "I love you," 3 more times, leaving Xiong Mei Li completely flustered. Blushing furiously, she threw her blade to the ground, then turned and ran away. The system chimed in congratulations. Host Zhang Dali for completing the initial mission. Beginning system synchronization. Zhang Dali couldn't believe he had just escaped death by a hair's breadth. He felt mentally exhausted as his consciousness slowly faded and he passed out. The last thing he heard was the system announcing that his cultivation level was too low and it would enter a hibernation state to complete the connection. This time, the system appeared as a cat. It was lounging casually on a cloud, resting its head on its paws with its tail swaying gently. In a random room somewhere, Zhang Dali was sleeping like a log, drool streaming down his face. Suddenly, he heard a ding. The system announced that the synchronization process was complete. Zhang Dali shot up wide awake and overjoyed. After all the hardships, he had finally activated his cheat system. Zhang Dali began to daydream about the good life, his cultivation level soaring, becoming a grand protector, or a head instructor, and marrying a second-generation immortal heiress. Just the thought of it was exhilarating. Zhang Dali felt his morale surge by 10 billion%. He felt that reaching the pinnacle of cultivation was no longer a distant dream. While he was lost in his power fantasy, the door to his room was suddenly and violently kicked off its hinges. The intruder was Xiong Mei Li's older brother, Xiong Nan. The siblings were truly 2 peas in a pod. With a grim expression, Xiong Nan came to condemn Zhang Dali. "You dare bully my little sister?" he demanded. A timid Zhang Dali asked who Xiong Nan's sister was. Zhang Dali was lifted by the collar like a sandbag. Xiong Nan clearly thought Zhang Dali was playing dumb. He was Xiong Mei Li's brother. He asked if Zhang Dali dared to bully his sister without doing his homework first. In this entire Myriad Races United Cultivation Skills Academy, did he not know who Xiong Nan was to dare provoke him? Zhang Dali was completely bewildered. What was going on? He trembled and continued to explain. It was all a huge misunderstanding, but Xiongnan wasn't listening. His aura was like a crazed bear's. He was determined to cripple Zhang Dali. Seeing the fist about to kiss his face, a helpless Zhang Dali called out to his system again. "You damn system, hurry up and give me an ultimate skill to deal with this Xiongnan guy." The system gave a blunt reply. Exchanges are based on principles. It told Zhang Dali to resolve the current problem on his own. Just when he thought he was about to be beaten black and blue, a voice called out to stop it. The person who arrived was Xiongmei Li. Seeing his precious little sister arrive, Xiongnan told her to stay out of this. Xiongmei Li gently explained to her brother that she and Zhang Dali were truly in love with each other. Hearing this, Zhang Dali broke out in a cold sweat. He suddenly felt that maybe dying right now wouldn't be so bad after all. When Zhang Dali tried to explain, Xiongmei Li yelled at him to shut up, warning that her brother would grind him into paste. To protect his own pathetic life, the words Zhang Dali was about to say were swallowed back down as he fell silent. Xiongnan kept staring daggers at him, making him gulp in fear. After a moment of silence, Xiongnan threw Zhang Dali to the ground with a thud, threatening that he must treat his sister well from now on. If not, he would be tossed into the heavens after saying his piece. Yongneng arrogantly strutted away, leaving only Xiongmei Li and Zhang Dali in the room. Xiongmei Li placed a hand on her chest and began to explain to Zhang Dali that she knew the words he spoke yesterday were not sincere, but because he was the first person to ever confess his love to her, she was deeply moved and decided to save his life. Zhang Dali let out a laugh and thanked her. Xiongmei Li then warned him that her brother is incredibly hot-tempered, and if anyone were to bully her, her brother would kill them. A shiver went down Zhang Dali's spine. He felt lucky to still be alive. Xiongmei Li then suggested that, to fool her brother, they would have to pretend to be a real couple. Zhang Dali jumped in surprise, sensing that trouble was brewing. Xiongmei Li then invited him to her dorm room that night to continue the act for her brother Xiongmeng to see. Zhang Dali broke out in goosebumps, completely speechless. Xiongmei Li said her goodbyes, reminding him not to forget their date before she left. She gave Zhang Dali a wink and blew him a kiss, adding that their feelings could grow over time. As Zhang Dali witnessed this cringe-worthy display, he felt as if a spear had just pierced his heart. In agony, Zhang Dali desperately called out for the system to appear. He demanded an explanation. Was this really the beautiful girl the system promised he would marry? The cat-like system slowly materialized from a data window. It giggled, trying to placate Zhang Dali. Calm down. The system has successfully synced, but not all of its features are unlocked yet. Once all the system functions are activated, he'll be able to reach the pinnacle of his existence. Hearing this, Zhang Dali's spirits were lifted. He excitedly clenched his fists, deciding to put his faith in the system one last time. The system itself just froze, unsure of what else to do but stay silent. At that very moment, a knock came from the door. The visitor was the red-haired woman, Miss Jiang. The moment she entered, she opened her mouth to call out, "Hey, there, perv, are you still alive?" Zhang Dali, leaning against the bed frame, slowly got to his feet. He was alive, but he wasn't feeling great. He turned to Miss Jiang and explained that he wasn't a pervert and that his name was Zhang Dali. Seeing that he wasn't trying anything funny, Miss Jiang smiled back and said, "Welcome to the United 10,000 Races Island Nation, Zhang Dali." Zhang Dali's head was filled with question marks as he asked, "This is an island nation." Miss Jiang cheerfully began to explain that this country is a federation of small islands, and it's also the United 10,000 Races Cultivation and Skills Academy. Zhang Dali was completely lost. He had no idea what a cultivation academy even was. Miss Jiang decided not to waste her breath explaining, since Zhang Dali probably wouldn't understand anyway. She told him to just go outside and take a look. Outside, people were flying on clouds and wind, practicing their explosive combat skills. With flashes of light and crackles of electricity, Zhang Dali watched in awe from afar and exclaimed, "This really is a cultivation academy." Xie. Miss Jiang kindly explained that this specific island is the Cultivation Academy for the human race. The United 10,000 Races Academy is essentially a collection of school islands. This one is exclusively for human students, while other islands house students from different races. Miss Jiang then asked if he was a new student. A bit flustered, Zhang Dali scratched his head and gave a vague answer. I guess so." He started thinking about the old fortune teller who sent him to this place. Does that old man actually want me to go to school? He wondered. Miss Zhang then asked if he had completed his registration. Zhang Dali was taken aback. Registration? He had no idea what she was talking about. Miss Zhang clicked her tongue, scolding him for not even knowing about enrollment. "Whoever sent you here is completely irresponsible," she said. Miss Jiang then grabbed Zhang Dali by the arm and started dragging him along. She cheerfully decided to forget about the whole pervert incident, saying that once you're here, everyone is a classmate. For the first time, Zhang Dali felt. With a blushing face and a pounding heart, the excited girl held his hand. Lady Jiang pulled him along to get registered. A moment later, in a large hall, an elderly man and woman were chatting. The old man, Sun Dao, Ran, the head instructor, was praising. This year's students, saying their aptitude was quite good. They were outstanding talents, and the human race's next generation was poised to flourish. The person sitting next to him was Liu Sanyang, the deputy head instructor. She nodded in agreement, noting that last year's registrants were all useless kids who got in through connections. But she hadn't seen anyone like that this year. She had high hopes for this batch, believing they would be the strongest group of students for the human race. The two chatted for a while. Then Sun Dao Ran checked the time and saw it was getting late, so he stood up to pack his things and head home. Registration was already over, but suddenly a voice echoed from a distance, making Sun Dao Ran pause his packing. Lady Zhang arrived with Zhang Dali in tow, announcing that he wanted to register. The other students looked over, and were shocked to see it was Jiang Qiangshen. They couldn't believe she had personally escorted someone to registration because Lady Zhang was incredibly famous. She ranked in the top 10 of this year's freshmen and was the only female student in that elite group. They automatically deduced that the person she brought must be a genius as well, wondering if he might even be a monstrous talent on par with the top 3. Hearing the crowd's wild speculation, Zhang Dali felt awkward and didn't know how to react. His hands were still casually tucked in his pockets. This laid-back posture only strengthened their belief that Zhang Dali was a reincarnated prodigy. Even Sun Dao Ran was no exception. Beaming with excitement, he called Zhang Dali over for his assessment. As Zhang Dali slowly approached, he saw the crowd looking at him with great interest and admiration. He suddenly felt a surge of pride, his confidence boosting tenfold. Liu Sanyang also had high hopes for Zhang Dali. Jiang Qiangshen's own talent was exceptionally high, so she valued her judgment. For someone to be personally escorted by Jiang Qiangshen meant he had to be extraordinary. She wondered what kind of surprise was in store. Meanwhile, Zhang Dali began to fantasize. "They have this much faith in me," he thought. "Maybe I'm so powerful that even I don't realize it." Sun Dao Ran took out a bagua disc and set it down. He instructed Zhang Dali to state his name and place his hand on the cultivation assessment device. Zhang Dali confidently announced his grand name. Sun Dao Ran complimented him, saying it was quite a good name. He then mentioned that earlier, someone named Wang Lin had tested at the 7th level of the spirit condensation realm. Another Xiaoyan reached the 8th level, and even more impressively, Ye Fan had reached the 9th level of spirit condensation hearing. Sun Dao Ran's endless praise. Zhang Dali felt like he was truly chosen by destiny, and would definitely not be inferior to them. He boldly raised his hand high and slammed it down onto the bagua disc. The heavenly Dao stele above suddenly boomed. The crowd erupted in whispers, now even more convinced that Zhang Dali was a world-shaking prodigy. He was no simple character, truly worthy of being brought by Jiang Qiangshen. They say she was born with the 12 exquisite apertures, making her judgment of character incredibly sharp. A glowing green circle appeared on the heavenly Dao stele, and then words slowly materialized. Spirit condensation realm. Zeroth level. Seeing this, the crowd was utterly dumbfounded. All of their earlier assumptions had been completely wrong. To reach the 0th level of spirit condensation. How impressive. For a regular person, he really put on a show. This guy is the ultimate trash. The #1 waste in the history of the Myriad Races Academy. Sun Dao Ran handed Zhang Dali a broom and told him to take it. Zhang Dali was confused about Sun Dao Ran's intentions. Sun Dao Ran then delivered the verdict with a 0th level spirit condensation. You can only be a janitor at the Myriad Races Academy, this clan only. Only after making achievements in his cultivation would he be allowed into a higher class. Zhang Dali grumbled in annoyance. A janitor. Is this place a cultivation academy or some kind of trade school? At that moment, the system chimed in with an announcement. Congratulations to Zhang Dali for entering the academy and starting his cultivation journey. Zhang Dali was taken aback. What is this? The system then opened his status window. His current attributes aside from strength at level 3 showed that Zhang Dali's speed defense and magic were all at level 0. A textbook example of someone at the bottom of the social ladder. Zhang Dali looked at his stats but wasn't discouraged in the slightest. So what if I'm trash? So what if I'm at spirit condensation level 0? If this system works, the pinnacle of cultivation is within my grasp. The system then casually announced, "New mission perform, baby shark in front of everyone." Zhang Dali froze on the spot, utterly confused by the mission. Why would there be a mission like this? The system continued to explain. Based on the shock value generated from the surrounding people, it is highly possible to raise your cultivation to level 4. Zhang Dali gripped his broom tightly and bitterly asked the system, "Isn't the Baby Shark song, Shark?" One of those classic songs for 3-year-olds. He was over 20 years old, not a toddler anymore. Son Darren comforted Zhang Dali. Don't be discouraged. This academy doesn't discriminate based on status. Even though you're just a regular janitor student, this is an extraordinary role within your ordinary position. Son Daoran continued to encourage him. Zhang Dali's future is still immensely bright. The future of this academy rests on your shoulders. Zhang Dali was at a loss for words, knowing the old man was just spouting platitudes, but he didn't pay it any mind. He asked if he could sing a song to express his overwhelming emotions at that moment. Son Daoran was surprised by Zhang Dali's request. The old man thought with pride he must have been deeply moved by my speech to make such a sudden request. As expected, I'm an outstanding head teacher. Son Daoran was very accommodating and waved his hand to signal for the students below to be quiet. The crowd of students was also surprised and eagerly awaited Zhang Dali's performance. They started discussing amongst themselves that even if Zhang Dali was at spirit condensation level 0, being able to sing was still a pretty good skill. Zhang Qinshen also looked toward Zhang Dali to offer some moral support. Zhang Dali paused for a moment, then began to show off his golden voice by singing Baby Shark. The students, the 2 teachers, and even Zhang Qinshen were completely dumbfounded. But Zhang Dali kept singing for the experience points, passionately using his broom as a microphone for his performance as the system began to calculate the shock value. Cultivation increased to spirit condensation level 1 reward. 2 skill points. Zhang Dali, Chenyi, was startled. He never imagined leveling up his cultivation was this easy. If that's the case, who needs dignity anyway? He decided to shock the crowd. Senseless Zhang Dali gripped his broom and sang "The Wheels on the Bus" with even more fervor, making the audience clutch their heads in disbelief. As he continued to sing, the shock value for his performance reached 4 stars. Zhang Dali's cultivation level increased to spirit condensation level, a boost reward. 2 skill points. This got Zhang Dali even more pumped up. He burst with energy, rocking out to Baby Shark while the other students stood frozen, assuming Zhang Dali had finally snapped from the pressure. After all, he was the Academy's very first level 0 prodigy. The system announced again, shock value has reached 5 stars. Cultivation increased to spirit. Condensation level 3, reward 2. Skill points. Zhang Dali felt that just singing wasn't enough, so he started hyping up the crowd, telling them to raise their hands, dance, and clap along. It's true that if you feel no shame, the shame falls on everyone else. Zhang Qinshen and the other students below felt a crushing wave of second-hand embarrassment on Zhang Dali's behalf. Zhang Dali couldn't care less about him and even turned to tell the utterly shocked Su Daoran and Leng Wenliang, "Just relax and jump up over there." Su Daoran's face darkened. This was probably the most horrifying shock of his life and an absolute failure. As a director, he was even encouraging other students to go up. Zhang Dali strode forward majestically, broom in hand. He felt a surge of confidence after his hack got him to the 3rd level of spirit condensation. He had finally taken the first step on the path of cultivation. Zhang Dali stood before a frost-resistant tree. If he was already at level 3, it was time to see just how powerful he had become. Zhang Dali tensed his abs, clenched his glutes, and with all his might threw a powerful punch at the tree trunk, expecting it to snap, but the tree wasn't even scratched before his hand was already in agony. Zhang Dali asked the system again, "Is this third level of spirit condensation a fake? How can I not even damage a single tree?" The fat cat appeared and cheerfully explained, "A cultivation level only represents the change in quality and quantity of spiritual energy in a cultivator's body. To unleash destructive power, you need to learn corresponding techniques." For Zhang Dali, this meant he now needed skill points. The system opened up his status window. Zhang Dali currently had 6 skill points, and allocating them to a desired skill would increase his power in that specific area. He finally got it, so he needed skill points. Zhang Dali was fired up again. First things first, strength had to be ruled out. He never wanted to be ridiculed for his brute strength again. A stream of memories flashed through his mind as Zhang Dali recalled his past. An image appeared of a cracked doll. A young Zhang Dali held the shattered toy, looking bewildered at his crying little sister. Zhang Dali's mother comforted his sister while scolding him, asking why he was so strong and couldn't be gentle with anything. "You broke another toy." When Zhang Dali was 11, he helped the teachers carry desks, but his classmates whispered and mocked him. They said he was just a brainless jock being used by the teacher. At 18, Zhang Dali silently listened to his teacher's critique. "Your grades are average, not going up or down. With your strong arms, you should just drop out and go work with your Uncle Sai." At 23 years old, his girlfriend of 3 years broke up with him. This time, Zhang Dali couldn't stay silent. He had clearly been so good to her. He had worked as a laborer to support her, and he would have even stolen to provide for her, but his girlfriend didn't care. She didn't care about anything he did. She angrily put her hands on her hips and said Zhang Dali was so strong his brain must be damaged. "The things you do aren't romantic at all." With that, she turned and walked away. Zhang Dali couldn't give her the love she wanted. She wanted to end it right there. Recalling his blood-boiling past, Zhang Dali imagined himself unleashing flames. A cultivator naturally needs magical arts. Directly casting ultimate moves like that is what's romantic, cool, and attractive to girls. Zhang Dali was resolved. Only losers rely on pure strength. If he ever focused on strength again, he'd be a dog. He decided to hit the plus button to add 2 points to magical arts and see the effect, but no matter how many times he pressed it, the points wouldn't increase. It was still 0. Zhang Dali shouted at the system, "What's going on? Why can't I add skill points?" The system reappeared in its chubby cat form and explained, "Because you and the system have not successfully and fully integrated. The system's skill tree is not fully activated. There is a flaw in adding skill points, making it impossible to add points to magical arts." Zhang Dali was furious. "What do you mean not successfully integrated? What do you mean not fully activated?" Zhang Dali started cursing, right in the fat cat's face. He cursed out the system, knowing it was unreliable, but how could it have failed? The system looked at the attribute panel, which was showing several 10s. It said Trong Dai Luk's strength attribute was too powerful and the panel was only designed for normal starting strength. Truong Dai Luk fumed. "Does this mean I can only increase my strength skill from now on?" He suddenly fell into a crisis. Could it be that his tragic life was about to repeat itself at this Cultivation Academy? Trong Dai Luk cursed out loud as the system opened at the dormitory of the Human Race campus in the Myriad Races Joint Cultivation Skills Academy. Trong Dai Luk sighed. He let out a long, sorrowful sigh, thinking it's better than nothing. The system could only watch from behind a tree with a guilty and sympathetic look. Truong Dai Luk reluctantly pressed to increase his strength. He tapped it 3 times and his strength stat rose to 9. Standing in front of the dorm, he thought it didn't look too bad. Trong Dai Luk knocked lightly on the door, wondering if he had a roommate, but his hand had only tapped once and the door was already rattling off its hinges. Trong Dai Luk walked in and politely raised his hand to greet a chubby guy who was about to put on a skirt. The chubby guy gave Trong Dai Luk the side-eye and asked what he wanted. Truong Dai Luk's raised hand froze in mid-air. He was rooted to the spot at the door, wondering if this guy was some kind of creep. The chubby guy snapped at Truong Dai Luk, asking if he didn't know how to knock. Truong Dai Luk scratched his head and explained that he did knock, but the door didn't seem very sturdy. What could he do when all his attribute points were dumped into strength? He couldn't control it and would just have to be more careful. In the future, The chubby guy pointed at Zhang Dali and asked what he wanted. Zhang Dali explained that he was a new student in this year's janitor class. The chubby guy immediately scrambled to change his clothes, and when he came out, he was neatly dressed with a cleanly trimmed mustache. The chubby guy's attitude had done a complete 180 as he warmly welcomed student Zhang Dali. Zhang Dali was shocked that this chubby guy was a fellow student. He timidly asked if they were in the same year, and the chubby guy nodded, confirming and introducing himself as Thuong Tu Trang, saying he was a little older than Zhang Dali. He told Zhang Dai, "Luke To, just call him Brother Thuong from now on." Zhang Dali froze for 5 seconds, thinking he must have misheard, and asked the chubby guy how they could possibly be in the same year. The guy cheerfully puffed out his chest and said he'd been here for 20 years. It was like being struck by lightning held back for 20 years. Zhang Dali said that Brother Thuong must have a history here longer than some of the teachers. Thuong Tu Chang proudly put his hands on his hips and confirmed it. He said that many new teachers come over on their first day. To get the inside scoop from him, Thuong Tu Chang then grabbed Zhang Dali's hand and led him to the classroom since class was about to start. They entered a room where other students were cheerfully playing around. Zhang Dali remarked that for a janitor class, he thought they'd be studying in a dumpster, but the classroom wasn't half bad. Thuong Tu Trang plopped himself down in a chair. Zhang Dali pulled up a chair next to him. Thuong Tu Trang sprawled across the desk looking bored, saying the janitor class was an official academy class. It's just filled with all sorts of students with the worst potential in school who couldn't level up. They're basically a lost cause now, so they can do whatever they want. Zhang Dali, sitting beside him, praised Brother Thuong for being so awesome that even the homeroom teacher doesn't dare mess with him. Thuong Tu Trang raised his hand proudly, saying his 20 years at this human race academy weren't for nothing. Everyone has to show him at least some respect. Lai Tran then began the orientation, explaining that both old and new students were present, but most of them were still new students as Li Zhen began his pep talk. To the students sitting here, although your innate aptitude isn't high, you lack wealth or a powerful background, you don't try as hard as other students, and your IQ and EQ are far inferior to them. But are you all just going to accept that? Don't you want to try putting in the effort? But none of the students sitting below bothered to react, instead hitting Li Zhen with a critical question. The ones who are already outstanding work even harder. So what's the point of us even trying? Li Zhen looked like he'd been struck by lightning and tried to save face by praising the student who had just asked an excellent question. He then asked the other students if anyone could answer it. Why do we need to put in the effort? The class fell into a contemplative silence with no one bothering to answer. Utterly embarrassed, Li Zhen grew angry, slamming the table and announcing that whoever could answer would be exempt from 10 days of cleaning duty. Li Zhen was sweating internally, thinking, what kind of heck of a question is this? Even he couldn't answer it. Suddenly, Zhang Dali raised his hand, saying he could answer. Zhang Dali placed a hand on his chest as if he were about to reveal a profound philosophy. We must put in the effort, only then can we truly believe that we are completely and utterly useless. The head teacher was stunned upon hearing this. His jaw dropped, and he froze on the spot. Chang Xiaobai, who had woken up at some point beside him, started applauding in admiration. He then chimed in, thanking the elite students for defeating him so that he could now lounge around comfortably like this. The other students also clapped in agreement. Effort doesn't guarantee success, but not making an effort definitely guarantees a life of ease. Chang Xiaobai then uttered another truth. If something in life is too difficult, just give up on it. The other students then also clamored in agreement, each offering their own opinion, none of which supported the idea of hard work. Li Zhen looked at this bunch of students and was utterly helpless and speechless. He angrily slammed the table, yelled that the meeting was over, and then stormed away. The furious Li Zhen complained that the sanitation class was a lost cause. If he ever went back there to talk about ideals and the future, he would be a complete fool. Zhang Dali and Chang Xiaobai walked out of the classroom. Zhang Dali asked Chang Xiaobai if he knew of Xiong Chang Xiaobai felt weary just thinking about that gorilla of a man. That Xiong Neng guy is considered a formidable figure in this academy, but he has a terrible temper and is quick to fly into a rage. Xiong Neng also has a younger sister named Xiong Meili, who grew up looking just like a bear. For 3 years straight, she was secretly voted the ugliest female student in the Human Race Academy. However, Neng is extremely protective of his younger sister. Anyone who dares to make Xiang Meili unhappy can be sure they'll get a thorough beating. The knowledgeable Chang recalled that a few days ago, a new student dared to mock Xiang Meili and had both of his legs broken by Xiang Neng. He's still recovering now from his injuries. Upon hearing this, Zhang Dali suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Zhang Xiaobai concluded that the one female student you can't afford to offend in the academy isn't the campus beauty Zhang Qingshen, but Xiang Meili. Zhang Dali's face paled as he asked about the power level of Xiang Neng. Zhang Dali guessed that if he was at spirit level 3, was Xiang Neng that much higher? Zhang Xiaobai put a hand on his hip and pointed out that Xiang Neng could probably take on 1,800 guys like Zhang Dali. Zhang Dali broke into a cold sweat. It seemed the task of him pretending to be Xiang Meili for Xiang Neng's sake was something he absolutely had to do. That evening at the girls' dormitory, a dejected Zhang Dali stood in front of the door. Xiang Meili must be in here. Zhang Dali stepped forward and knocked on the door, but no one opened it. Is no one here? Didn't Xiang Meili tell him to come to the dormitory to find her tonight? Zhang Dali grabbed the doorknob, intending to open the door, but he couldn't control his own strength. He gripped the doorknob so hard it nearly broke and opened the door to find the person he was looking for. But upon entering, he saw Zhang Quintan with cucumber slices on her eyes. She was only covered by a single towel. Zhang Dailu's face flushed and his heart pounded. This person definitely wasn't Hung Mai Li. Unaware of another person in the room, Zhang Quintan sighed that it was too hot and removed the towel covering her chest to cool down. Her entire figure was revealed right before Zhang Dailu's eyes, causing him to have a massive nosebleed. Flustered, Zhang Dailu stumbled backward and bumped into a vase which wobbled and then shattered. Zhang Dailu thought to himself, "My life is over." Hearing the commotion, Zhang Quintan didn't remove the cucumbers from her eyes and turned to ask, "You're back already?" Zhang Quintan patted the spot next to her, telling Zhang Dailu to come sit down. Zhang Dailu tried to restrain himself, turning to leave. If he were discovered in a situation like this, no explanation in the world would suffice. Just as Zhang Dailu was about to leave, Zhang Quintan called out from behind him. She told Zhang Dailu to come and give her a shoulder massage. Zhang Dailu hesitated, an internal battle raging within him. Should I go now or stay a little longer? Behind him, Zhang Quintan, still completely oblivious, gestured with her hand, beckoning Zhang Dailu to hurry over. Zhang Dailu had no choice but to reluctantly shuffle over and stand behind Zhang Quintan. Zhang Quintan told Zhang Dailu to massage a bit harder today because she had been suffering from muscle tension lately. Obeying the beauty, Zhang Dailu began to knead her shoulders, his face red and his heart racing. Zhang Quintan praised his grip for being stronger than before and said it felt incredibly relaxing. She reached up to touch the hand that was massaging her. She asked why his hands were a bit rough, reminding the person massaging her that as a girl she needed to take care of her skin. Outside the dormitory, a group of people had gathered. A lackey holding a box stood behind them and announced, "This is the residence of the campus belle Zhang Quintan." The newcomer was La Fong, dressed in neat, handsome clothes and filled with confidence. 1 month ago, when he first met Zhang Quintan, it was love at first sight. For her, he had even made a special trip to the Star Sand Beast Sea. He used the core of the most spiritual beast to brew this pot of soup. He wondered if she would like it. The lackeys behind him seized the opportunity to flatter him, saying that with such sincerity, Zhang Quintan would surely love it. La Fong was a brilliant and martial genius, a rare treasure at the Human Clan Academy. Zhang Quintan would be too busy admiring him to even think of refusing. As the group prepared to enter, they suddenly heard a voice from behind. Hung Mai Lei was trying to stop her brother Hung Nong, saying it was inappropriate to visit the dormitory so late. Hung Nong was determined, storming aggressively towards the dormitory. He wanted to see if Zhang Dailu had actually shown up. If he hadn't, he would break all 3 of Zhang Dailu's legs. It was only then that Hung Mai Lei noticed the group of people in front of the dorm. She recognized La Fong and asked if he was there to see Zhang Quintan again. La Fong didn't deny it, taking the box from his subordinate's hands. He said he wanted to give a gift to Zhang Quintan. Hung Nang, however, showed La Fong no respect, not caring who La Fong was there to see. He reminded him that this was a dormitory and he shouldn't come running around late at night as it would set a bad example. La Fong was infuriated by Hung Nong's words. He yelled back, cursing at Hung Nong, asking why it was fine for him to come at night but a bad influence when he did it. After a brief argument, both sides decided to go inside together. Meanwhile, Trong Dai Luke, his entire body rigid, was still massaging Zhang Quintan's shoulders. Suddenly, Zhang Quintan turned around, reached out and wrapped her arms around Trong Dai Luke's neck, asking him to help her up. Zhang Quintan casually draped her arms over Trong Dai Luke's shoulders. Trong Dai Luke complied and lifted the young woman into his arms. Zhang Qingshen laughed, asking why the beautiful lady was in such high spirits today. Suddenly, the door creaked open and Zhang Dali's heart sank. He was totally screwed. Then, Xiangneng Luofeng and their group walked in. Seeing the compromising scene, Luofeng was stunned and yelled, "Holy crap!" Zhang Dali broke out in a cold sweat. Thinking his life was over, Zhang Qingshen, oblivious to the tense atmosphere, innocently asked Zhang Dali why he hadn't left yet. Xiangneng, who had been silent, finally exploded with rage, roaring, "What are you two doing?" Only then did Zhang Qingshen become bewildered. She removed the cucumber slices from her eyes and, realizing Zhang Dali was the one holding her, panicked and struggled to jump down. Covering herself, Zhang Dali quickly tried to explain it was all a big misunderstanding and that he was just helping out. But Xiangneng trembled with fury, a murderous aura flaring up behind him. He confronted Zhang Dali, reminding him that he already had his sister Mei Li. And yet, he still dared to be a two-timing player. At this point, even jumping into the Yellow River couldn't clear Zhang Dali's name. He could only weakly deny the accusations. The furious Xiangneng spat out, "I will absolutely not let you get away with this," before kicking the door and storming off. Luo Feng, holding a box, turned to confront Zhang Qingshen. "I liked you so much, and this is how you repay me by making me a cuckold." Luo Feng was seeing red with rage, determined to have a showdown with Zhang Dali. He threw the box he was holding at him and stormed out with his group. Once they were all gone, a resentful Xiang Mei Li cursed Zhang Dali, calling him a filthy, ungrateful bastard. Zhang Qingshen didn't defend him either, thinking she had completely misjudged Zhang Dali's character. He was nothing but a total pervert. She then turned and went inside with Xiang Mei Li. As everyone left, only Zhang Dali remained holding the box, completely stunned. What kind of mess had he caused now? Zhang Dali carried the box back to the janitor's dorm. Inside, he found Chang Xiaobai lounging with his legs crossed, gnawing on a chicken drumstick. "Hey, Zhang Dali, you're back," he said. Zhang Dali put the box down on the table. A curious Chang Xiaobai opened it to see what was inside. Looking at the jar in the box, he continued to chew loudly and asked, "Is this some kind of liquor?" Zhang Dali, who was in no mood to talk, just mumbled that he didn't know. Chang Xiaobai eagerly lifted the jar out of the box, suggesting they have a drink together. Zhang Dali remained silent. Without a second thought, Chang Xiaobai poured a cup and chugged it down. After the first gulp, he praised its taste. "Wow, this isn't bad at all. It's sweet." Zhang Dali, his heart heavy, also took a sip. He figured he might as well just roll with the punches and see what happened. At worst, he would just have to leave the academy. But as soon as he swallowed that one sip, the system's cat-like interface popped up with a notification, "Congratulations, user Zhang Dali. You have obtained the high-grade item, Beast Core Broth. Your cultivation has reached level 4. Overjoyed, Zhang Dali stared at his cup. "Holy crap! I never expected this stuff to be so potent." His spirits instantly lifted. He excitedly poured another cup and drank it down. The system immediately chimed in again, notifying him that he had reached cultivation level 5. Zhang Dali leaped to his feet, grabbed the entire jar and began to chug it down. Chang Xiaobai watched this unfold, utterly stunned. "Is it really that delicious?" he wondered. A short while later, Luo Feng and his lackeys arrived in front of Zhang Dali's janitor dorm. The followers behind Luo Feng asked if he was there to teach Zhang Dali a lesson. But boss fighting is forbidden in the dormitory area. Luo Feng shook his head. He had just remembered that he'd thrown the jar of broth at Zhang Dali. That broth was the result of more than half a month of hard work in the Star Sea just to catch a single flying spirit fish. He then used its spirit core to brew the broth for 7 days and 7 nights. It possessed the incredible effect of boosting cultivation and raw power. He had to get it back. Meanwhile, Zhang Dali had just finished chugging the entire jar of broth. after leveling up to the 7th stage of spirit gathering. Zhang Dali wiped his mouth and flopped onto a chair to rest when La Fong pushed the door open and saw him. A scene of Thuong Tiu Chang and Zhang Dali blissfully full after feasting, he immediately went over and saw his empty soup pot, and asked Zhang Dali if he had finished it all. Zhang Dali, feeling guilty, explained that he thought La Fong didn't want it anymore. So he finished it to avoid waste. La Fong hugged the pot, crying tearlessly, then angrily turned to Zhang Dali to settle old scores, and new ones demanding a death match with Zhang Dali that would not end until one of them was dead. The duel was set for 3 days from now, and if Zhang Dali didn't dare to show up, he should just get lost from the academy. La Fong snorted in anger and turned to leave. Zhuang Dali shouted for La Fong to wait, thinking he was looking for a fight. La Fong scowled and asked what he wanted. Zhang Dali shamelessly licked his lips and asked La Fong if he had any more of that soup he could have. He figured as long as he had the soup, what was a little duel to be afraid of? La Fong's nerve had been struck and he was seething with rage. Without waiting, he summoned his flames and threw a punch right at Zhang Dali's face, but his fist stopped short before it could land. Thuong Tiu Chang was standing behind him, recording the whole thing with his brightly lit phone. La Fong asked what he was doing. Thuong Tiu Chang calmly explained that fighting in a restricted zone resulted in a punishment of being sent to sea to fish. He then held up his phone and told La Fong to go on and not mind him. An enraged La Fong yelled at Thuong Tiu Chang to delete the pictures immediately. Unafraid, he set his price at 1 spirit stone per picture. With a total of 3 pictures, he asked if La Fong wanted to pay via transfer or pay in cash. Before he could finish, La Fong redirected his punch toward Thuong Tiu Chang since he hated being threatened. But Zhang Dali, standing nearby, started snapping photos one after another, forcing La Fong to immediately halt his violent actions. He glared bitterly at Zhang Dali and growled. Zhang Dali smirked, looking at La Fong with arrogant disdain as he named his own price. He also had 3 pictures for 3 spirit stones. From the sidelines, Thuong Tiu Chang gave Zhang Dali a thumbs up, praising his impressive performance. Zhang Dali tucked the pictures into his shirt and smirked provocatively at La Fong, saying it was all thanks to Brother Thuong's teachings. Thuong Tiu Chang added fuel to the fire, threatening La Fong that getting sent out to sea for fishing would be a huge stain on his reputation. It would be better to spend a little to avoid a major disaster. La Fong was furious but helpless, so he ordered his subordinates to give them the spirit stones. La Fong then glared at Zhang Dali, telling him to just wait for their duel in 3 days. With his pockets full of spirit stones, Zhang Dali waited for the trio to leave before asking Thuong Tiu Chang what La Fong called to mena se ni nim gina si shamdaya se kun sa si dana se va se Jin nam dam shaman dan Thuong Tiu Chang held up 3 fingers, estimating that La Fong was at least at the 3rd layer of the blood condensation realm for a freshman like Truong. Dali, there was no chance of winning. Zhang Dali's face immediately paled. He was only at the spirit gathering realm, while La Fong was a whole realm ahead of him. How could he possibly fight? Zhang Dali turned and asked Thuong Tiu Chang if it was possible to refuse the duel. Thuong Tiu Chang replied that it was possible, but refusing a duel meant that Zhang Dali would be seen as a coward. Zhang Dali was stunned into silence. He had no choice but to accept the duel. Just then, a system notification appeared, announcing a new mission: successfully start a conversation with a female student to earn skill points. Accumulating 10 skill points would unlock a special ability. After hearing the mission, Zhang Dali cursed out the system, calling it a trash tier system. The quest notifications are all trash too. The white-robed student watched Dale Zhang cursing at thin air, his head full of question marks, wondering if this guy was brain damaged. Dale Zhang was still furiously cursing as he grabbed the system by the collar and shook it, since he had just been called a pervert and challenged to a duel. So why was it giving him a quest like this now? Despite his complaints the next day, Dale Zhang was still loitering in the plaza, hitting on girls. He called out to a beautiful blonde girl. She asked Dale Zhang what he wanted. Dale Zhang held up the broom in his hand and said, "Hey, you dropped this." And then he tossed the broom into her hands. The girl angrily snapped the broom in half and stormed off, saying she was not on the cleaning crew, leaving Dale Zhang standing there dumbfounded. The system popped up a notification. Conversation initiated with 1 person success. Gained 1 skill point. Dale Zhang laughed and said, "Haha, this quest is awesome. It is a piece of cake to get a skill point like this." The scene changes to another location. Dale Zhang saw a chubby classmate eating alone, so he approached her and asked if she was eating all by herself. Seeing such a handsome guy like Dale Zhang talking to her, the girl blushed and replied yes. But that jerk Dale Zhang immediately threw cold water on her. He said with disdain, "How can one person eat that much?" Instantly, Dale Zhang got a pudding slapped right across his face and was told to get lost. The system notified him again. Conversation initiated with 2 people, gained 2 skill points. Dale Zhang fell to the ground with the entire pudding splattered on his face, but he was still thrilled. He exclaimed that it smelled so good. A few days later, a group of female students were whispering amongst themselves. They were talking about a new conversation fiend who had recently appeared at the Human Academy. He rushes up to any girl he sees to start a conversation, and his game is absolutely terrible. The brown-haired girl who was quite busty put a hand on her chest and said he had just hit on her last night. The blue-haired girl was jealous, wondering why the conversation fiend had not approached her. Was it because she was not pretty enough, as the girls were gossiping? Dale Zhang happened to walk by. The brown-haired girl pointed and said, "There, that is the conversation fiend." By now, Dale Zhang was completely bruised and battered. He calculated that in the last 3 days he had started 26 conversations, gotten beaten up 12 times by the girls and another 5 times by their boyfriends. The system floated above him, announcing that the quest time was over. The system pulled up his status window to calculate the results and congratulated Dale Zhang on earning 26 skill points, enough to unlock a special ability once. It asked Dale Zhang if he wanted to use them. Without hesitation, Dale Zhang told the system to unlock it. Right now, he could only add points to his strength, so if he could get a special ability, that would be fantastic. The system congratulated Dale Zhang on obtaining the special ability named Miracle Healing Fist. Any illness can be cured with a single punch. Dale Zhang looked at the new ability and blew his top, shouting, "What the hell is this crap?" Dale Zhang landed a punch right on the system's face. What good is an ability like this? Am I supposed to use it during the duel with Lafont and punch him once to cure all his illnesses, or what? The system was knocked unconscious by the blow, but Dale Zhang was not done. He grabbed the system by the collar and shook it violently. He knew this trashy system was completely unreliable. The system, dizzy from being shaken, told Dale Zhang to let it go first. Dale Zhang then pointed to the status window and said, "Just add the points to strength then. At least that will be useful in the duel." Just then, Lafont arrived. He asked Dale Zhang if he was ready yet. Dale Zhang sarcastically asked if Lafont would give him more time to prepare if he said he was not. Lafont simply summoned his weapon. He slammed a spear into the ground with a powerful thud. He declared that today, either Zhang Dali dies or he dies shocking the surrounding students. A curious student asked who Luo Feng was having a death match with. Someone next to them answered. It was the freshman, Zhang Dali, the same guy. 2 days ago, when Zhang Dali from the sanitation crew was challenged by Luo Feng, it was said that even 100 Zhang Dalis couldn't possibly defeat him. Luo Feng confidently held his spear and told Zhang Dali to draw his weapon lest people accuse him of bullying the weak. He calmly replied that he didn't have one. Luo Feng fell silent for a moment, then tossed his own spear to Zhang Dali, saying he didn't like to take unfair advantage of others, telling Zhang Dali to use his weapon instead. Luo Feng then proudly introduced his spear. It was forged from 10,000-year-old deep-sea dark iron, making it incredibly durable and weighing nearly 400 pounds, impossible for a normal person to even lift. Zhang Dali took the spear, casually applied a bit of force, and with a flick it snapped in two. Luo Feng immediately swallowed the words he was about to say. Zhang Dali held up the broken pieces and innocently asked, "This is what you call incredibly durable?" Luo Feng's jaw dropped, completely stunned and unable to believe it. He couldn't process what was happening right in front of him. As Luo Feng watched Zhang Dali snap his rare weapon, the surrounding students were also taken aback. The onlookers began to ridicule Luo Feng for playing a dirty trick, giving Zhang Dali a fake spear to use as a weapon. Anyone who didn't know better might actually think Zhang Dali was strong enough to snap the spear in two like that. The crowd continued to mock him, saying Luo Feng's acting was far too convincing. They almost thought he had genuinely given his real weapon to Zhang Dali. Meanwhile, the oblivious Zhang Dali held out his hand, asking Luo Feng if he had any other weapons they could switch to. Having completely lost face, and with Zhang Dali now unintentionally rubbing salt in his wound, Luo Feng's aura flared with rage. He screamed in Zhang Dali's face, saying it was one thing for him to drink his beast core soup, but now he had also broken the spear that took 3 whole years to forge. With blood rushing to his head, Luo Feng was determined to teach Zhang Dali a lesson. He lunged forward, throwing a powerful punch at Zhang Dali. A confused Zhang Dali watched him charge, realizing he had never been in a fight before. What was he supposed to do now? As he stood there frantically calling on his system for help, Luo Feng charged in with absolute confidence. He assumed Zhang Dali was just frozen in fear, and that victory was already in his grasp, but his all-out full-power punch was effortlessly blocked by Zhang Dali with a single hand. Luo Feng was shocked. His fist was caught and he couldn't move it an inch. The other students watching from the sidelines thought Luo Feng was just putting on another act, pretending to go easy on Zhang Dali. They simply assumed that Luo Feng was faking it, because who would believe that Zhang Dali could actually block a full-power punch from him? But as they say, only the one in the fight knows the truth. Luo Feng knew better than anyone that he wasn't pretending. He couldn't pull his hand back no matter how hard he tried. He then asked Zhang Dali just what was going on. Zhang Dali smirked and replied, "What do you mean, what's going on?" He had never fought anyone before, especially not a fight. Against a cultivator like Luo Feng, he then cluelessly asked Luo Feng what he should do next. Luo Feng told Zhang Dali to let go of his hand first. Zhang Dali agreed, and Luo Feng thought to himself that this guy really was an idiot to let go so easily. But Zhang Dali was known as the master of deception for a reason. He wasn't that easy to fool. Instead, Zhang Dali tightened his grip on Luo Feng's fist, making him panic. Then, Zhang Dali spun around and slammed Luo Feng straight into the ground, leaving him dizzy, seeing stars and foaming at the mouth. He could only curse Zhang Dali for being such a trickster. In Chapter 22, Zhang Dali stood with his hands on his hips, looking down at Luo Feng sprawled on the ground. The crowd of onlookers stood there with their jaws dropped. They still couldn't believe that Zhang Dali had actually taken down Luo Feng. Thinking Luo Feng was just being overly dramatic, another guy had to admit Zane Strong was seriously strong, grabbing Luo Feng like grabbing a little bird. Luo Feng struggled to sit up. He couldn't believe Zane Strong had put him in this state. He was determined to get revenge. Luo Feng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, tensing his abs and glutes. His muscles bulged and rippled, tearing his shirt apart. A student watching from the sidelines immediately recognized that Luo Feng was about to use the explosive burst fist. After saying that he suddenly felt something was off, he had a nagging suspicion that earlier Luo Feng wasn't faking it, but was actually injured by Zane Strong. The student started to see Zane Strong in a new light, thinking he looked ordinary, but was a hidden powerhouse. Luo Feng's expression changed as he raised his fist and started to boast. He bragged that he had trained in a technique called the explosive burst fist. As long as he was injured, he could immediately unleash a burst of power and take down an opponent with a single punch. Luo Feng's rage swelled, blood rushed to his head, and he clenched his fists until they trembled. Zane Strong had injured him, so now he would die. With that, Luo Feng charged towards Zane Strong, and with every step, the ground shattered into pieces. Luo Feng furiously aimed his fist at Zane Strong. Zane Strong thought he was done for, but he still raised his fist to counter. When their two fists met, the skill of the miracle healing fist from Zane Strong activated, healing all of Luo Feng's injuries and sending a wave of pleasure through him that reached the depth. The power of the explosive burst fist was neutralized along with it. Luo Feng looked left and right, seeing the wounds on his body had completely vanished. Before he could understand what was happening, his arm was grabbed by Zane Strong and he was thrown hard to the ground. Luo Feng lay there, flattened his head, full of questions. Why did his injuries suddenly heal and his burst fist get neutralized too? The students watching from the sidelines saw this and had to admit that Liu Feng wasn't faking it. A powerful technique like the explosive burst fist was somehow nullified by Zane Strong in an instant. This Zane Strong guy was pretty impressive. Liu Feng got up once more. He had realized there was something strange about Zane Strong, but then he told himself that no matter what he was injured again. So this time he could definitely unleash his burst power. Liu Feng once again unleashed the explosive burst fist, attacking Zane Strong. Zane Strong again followed the same old routine extremely confidently, using his miracle healing fist against Liu Feng. The moment their arms touched, Liu Feng once again felt that ecstatic pleasure shoot to his brain. His jaw dropped as his wounds healed completely again. Zane Strong then grabbed Liu's wrist and slammed him into the ground several times in a row. Liu Feng was in agony, but he stubbornly sat up, refusing to believe the reality of the situation. The more injured he was, the stronger his attack should be. Liu Feng still stubbornly refused to believe it and once again used his explosive burst fist to charge at Zane Strong. Zane Strong sighed in exasperation. Did he really have to be this stubborn? Zane Strong didn't even bother to move his butt, just raised his hand and used the miracle healing fist. Liu Feng, who was full of fighting spirit, suddenly deflated like a popped balloon. He stood there like a clown, utterly exhausted and deeply embarrassed, so Liu Feng just burst into tears on the spot. He fell to his knees and pounded the ground helplessly, crying out that Zane Strong was healing his injuries. How was he supposed to fight like this? Liu Feng started to lament, thinking back on his past from the moment he debuted. Until now, he had won countless competitions, big and small. He even defeated the demonic carp in the Star Sea. Just thinking about it brought tears to his eyes. Liu Feng couldn't believe that one day he would lose to a total nobody like Zhang Dali. At a loss for words, he stepped forward to pat Liu Feng's shoulder to comfort him, but who knew Liu Feng was as clingy as a leech, directly hugging his thigh. Crying, he wouldn't let go. A flustered Zhang Dali struggled but couldn't pry him off. Two students watching from a distance saw this scene. They couldn't understand why that Liu Feng guy was crying. The one next to him moved, offered an explanation, maybe after fighting back and forth. They developed feelings for each other. That just goes to show you. Brotherhood is true love. Romance is just for making the next generation. As soon as those words were spoken, an angry roar shook the heavens and the earth. The two students, Zhang Dali and Liu Feng, couldn't even stand. Steady. Zhang. Dali broke out in a cold sweat, completely speechless. What was approaching was a giant fish crackling with electricity. Staring at the colossal creature, his jaw dropped. What the heck is that monster? At the same time, a campus-wide alert blared through the Star Sea. A sea monster has invaded. Preliminary assessment is a talent-level threat. The fish thrashed its tail, shooting electricity everywhere as it slammed its giant tail down on a building, shattering it to pieces. The students scrambled for their lives, screaming for help as they ran. Director Sun Dao ran, and Vice Director Liu Sanyang drew their swords and took a combat stance. The two of them flew towards the fish to attack the beast. It was a colossal monster for daring to attack the Human Race Academy Sun Dao. Ran landed a strike on the fish's skin, but it had no effect. The fish was completely unscratched. It whipped its massive tail at Sun Dao, Ran sending the old man flying 8 meters. Liu Sanyang saw her colleague. Struck down and furiously charged forward, determined to go all out against the fish, but she too was knocked out by a swing of its tail. The result was the same as Sun Dao Ran's. Zhang Dali watched anxiously as Liu Sanyang was beaten until she coughed up blood, then looked at the fish that still showed no regard for anyone. It just continued to shoot electricity everywhere. Zhang Dali helped Liu Sanyang sit up and asked about her condition. Liu Sanyang wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and shakily stood up. She turned to Zhang Dali and told him to quickly find a place to hide, a sea monster proactively attacking the academy. Like this hasn't happened in nearly 100 years. She feared this was a great catastrophe. This sea monster, both Sun Dao, Ran, and Liu Sanyang were no match for it. Liu Sanyang urged Zhang Dali to save himself. Zhang Dali's face turned pale as he watched the giant fish crackling with lightning advancing towards them. Liu Sanyang shouted at Zhang Dali to run and hide. Liu Sanyang struggled and coughed up another mouthful of blood. Zhang Dali was frozen on the spot, his eyes wide as he gulped. Nervously, it seemed he couldn't move anymore. The big fish appeared to have found its prey. The monster turned towards Zhang Dali. and Liu Sanyang. Liu Sanyang stood in front of Zhang Dali, telling him to run quickly, that it was every man for himself now. Zhang Dali wanted to cry but had no tears. He desperately wanted to run, but his legs were like jelly, shaking so badly that he couldn't muster any strength. The fish got closer and closer, drool dripping down towards Liu Sanyang and Zhang Dali. Liu Sanyang realized this fish wanted to eat them. She activated a ring of fire, using all her strength to the point that even her hair tie snapped. She unleashed a technique to double her power. Before dying, Liu Sanyang would release her berserk form. Even in death, she wouldn't let this beastly fish get away unscathed. Liu Sanyang summoned an even greater source of power, so immense that her hair stood on end as if she was about to go. Super Saiyan. The large fish opened its toothy maw towards the two of them. Zhang Dali broke into a cold sweat, watching the mouth get closer and closer. He really didn't want to become fish food, pushed into a corner. Zhang Dali also decided to risk it all, testing his strength. Trong Dai Luk attacks the fish, grabbing its body and tearing off a chunk of its tough scales. Realizing the danger, the beast tries to crush Trong Dai Luk, but our protagonist isn't one to die so easily. Trong Dai Luk struggles. He bears the creature's immense weight, gathers his power, and hurls it thousands of miles away. Just as Lu Tam Nuong finishes preparing her ultimate attack, she realizes the fish has vanished without a trace. Lu Tam Nuong is stunned, wondering where the demonic beast went. Meanwhile, Ton Dao Niu was knocked senseless, but now finally comes to. He lets out a curse, then flies up again, determined to risk his life against the fish. But by the time he gets his bearings, the fish is long gone. Lu Tam Nuong, standing below, calls out to him and explains. Just as she was about to unleash her skill, the sea monster disappeared. Lu Tam Nuong then turns to Trong Dai Luk. "Did you see anything?" With his arms crossed and not a hint of humility, Trong Dai Luk points to himself and claims he handled it. He dealt with that sea monster, but obviously Lu Tam Nuong and Ton Dao Niu don't believe a worthless loser like Trong Dai Luk could do it. Ton Dao Niu sighs, ignoring Trong Dai Luk's non-stop boasting. He tells him to go get his head checked at the hospital. Back in Trong Dai Luk's dorm room, he asks Thuong Tiu Trang, who is leisurely pouring tea, why. Such a massive sea monster suddenly appeared at the academy. Thuong Tiu Trang calmly tells Trong Dai Luk to drink his tea first. Thuong Tiu Trang begins to reminisce about the old days. He has remained on this island of the human race for 20 years. Was this really his original intention? Hearing this, Trong Dai Luk does a spit take with his tea. Thuong Tiu Trang continues. Sinking deeper into his memories, he recalls how 20 years ago he was a formidable hero, a top-tier warrior surrounded by beautiful women. He lived a glorious youth, even winning first place in the Golden Algae competition. Thinking back on those old stories now brings him sorrow. But everything he had vanished one summer day 20 years ago. Truong Dai Luk wipes up the tea he just spat out. He feels something is off. Confused, he tells Thuong Tiu Trang that he only wanted to ask about the sea monster in the Starfall Sea. Thuong Tiu Trang snaps, telling Trong Dai Luk to be patient and listen to the whole story from the beginning. Trong Dai Luk immediately goes silent. He doesn't dare utter another word. Thuong Tiu Trang continues his tale. The Starfall Sea is vast and endless, filled with countless sea monsters. Monsters with immense power are even more numerous. At the same time, a mysterious palace is hidden at the bottom of the sea, a dungeon all cultivators deeply desire. Furthermore, in the entire vast Starfall Sea, the only landmass is the archipelago where they currently reside. This archipelago has existed for several thousand years, home to various races. Each island has its own academy and a dedicated war fortress to defend against attacks from the deep-sea monsters. For Trong Dai Luk, it's like discovering a whole new world. He realizes this world has no continents. It's all ocean. The only dry land is the archipelago where they stand. Trong Dai Luk then asks Thuong Tiu Trang if he knows where he came from. Thuong Tiu Trang shows no surprise at all as he answers with a single phrase, the mortal realm. Truong Dai Luk is shocked that Thuong Tiu Trang knows. Thuong Tiu Trang sips his tea. In this academy, aside from a few students from mysterious immortal sects, most of the other students are from the mortal realm. Among those from the mortal realm, some come from powerful Taoist sects or influential families with deep backgrounds. Others arrive through a special stroke of fate, and some are even tricked into coming here. Truong Dai Luk, who just took a sip of tea, is startled by this revelation. He choked and spat out all his tea, then turned to ask Xiaobai how he got tricked here. In Dali Zhang's heart, a bad premonition suddenly arose. Xiaobai then explained that the deep-sea demonic beasts would attack at regular intervals, attacking humans and capturing some of the human cultivators. It had become a tradition. Therefore, to protect the cultivators with good potential, some people, who clearly had no talent, were still recruited here. In reality, they were just meant to be used as cannon fodder. Dali Zhang was suddenly at a loss for words. Xiaobai then enthusiastically recounted a story from his past about a girl he loved. That very girl was tricked by an old man with a single grilled pancake to come here. It was a beautiful love story. In the end, while carrying out a mission, that girl was killed at the bottom of the sea. Mentioning the old man and the grilled pancake, Dali Zhang couldn't help but think of that pyramid scheme fortune teller. A chill ran down his spine and he grew furious. He was tricked into coming here to be cannon fodder. Xiaobai, unaware of the thoughts in Dali Zhang's mind, was still lost in the past. He and that girl had met during a dusky sunset. Just thinking about it brought him sorrow. Xiaobai fell into a contemplative silence. Dali Zhang didn't care about some heaven-shaking love story. He bluntly asked Xiaobai if he knew where the human realm was and if they could ever go back. Xiaobai was startled out of his stream of memories. The human realm is on another side of the world. Dali Zhang suddenly felt a headache coming on. Isn't this world entirely made of seawater? There's another place. Xiaobai simply explained that this world is a water world. A flat water world like a sheet of paper. One side of the paper is where they live, and the other side is the human realm. Dali Zhang was horrified. There's a world like that, so that means the human realm and the water world are two opposing sides. Xiaobai continued. Actually, the Myriad Races Academy exists precisely to stop the deep-sea demonic beasts from invading the human realm. After speaking for a while, Xiaobai sighed again, falling into contemplation. Dali Zhang thought he had misheard and asked again. The Human Race Academy is to prevent sea monsters from harassing the human realm. So it was only now that Dali Zhang fully understood the reason for the existence of the Myriad Races Cultivation Academy. Suddenly, Dali Zhang felt a sharp discomfort in his body. He clutched his chest in pain, sweat pouring down his face. Xiaobai asked worriedly, thinking Dali Zhang was just having a strong reaction from the shock, but Dali Zhang no longer had the strength to say anything more. He collapsed directly, falling unconscious. A worried Xiaobai called for a doctor. The doctor examined him for a moment, and Xiaobai asked about Dali Zhang's condition. Dr. Huang Feng, holding a large pair of scissors, resting on his thigh, sighed and said, Dali Zhang couldn't be saved. Before even entering the Human Race Academy, Dali Zhang already had a terminal illness and didn't have long to live. The news struck Xiaobai like a bolt of lightning. He was utterly shocked, never expecting that Dali Zhang, who was so young, would have a terminal illness. Xiaobai, in disbelief, asked Dr. Huang Feng again if the diagnosis could be wrong. His pride-wounded Huang Feng frowned. He had dissected countless sea monsters in the Starfall Sea. How could he possibly make a wrong diagnosis? Huang Feng staked his own reputation on it, guaranteeing that Dali Zhang was beyond saving. Xiaobai completely lost hope. Is he really incurable? What can we do? Huang Feng, with a sinister expression, raised his scissors. Why don't we let him perform a dissection on Dali Zhang right here and now? The scissors slowly moved closer to Dali Zhang. Xiaobai hurriedly tried to stop him, telling the doctor to calm down. Just then, Dali Zhang groggily woke up and saw the pair of scissors. He jolted awake, startling at the towering figure before him. Thuong Tiu Trang was overjoyed that Trong Dai Luke had finally woken up. Huang Feng, however, was visibly annoyed, shooting glances at Thuong Tiu Trang. It was then that Huang Feng spoke, informing Trong Dai Luke that he had no more than 3 days to live. After delivering the news, he didn't forget to entice Trong Dai Luke, suggesting he might as well contribute his body for an autopsy. Truong Dai Luke's face went pale as tears welled in his eyes. Was there really no other way? He backed away, feeling that his life wasn't over yet. Huang Feng relentlessly closed in, pressing a pair of scissors to Trong Dai Luke's neck, utterly confident in his diagnosis. He insisted that Zhang Dali would only live for 3 days. If he lasted even 1 day longer, he would admit defeat. Out of options, Zhang Dali blocked Huang Feng's scissors with his hand and turned to Thuong Tiu Chang for help, asking if there was anything he could do. Thuong Tiu Chang sighed. Cultivating to the golden immortal realm was one path, a journey that could take over 100 years of unpredictable progress. There was another way, an otherworldly palace at the bottom of the sea containing special treasures, but its danger level was even higher. If Zhang Dali went there, he certainly wouldn't survive more than 3 days. Defeated, Zhang Dali felt that this must be his fate. Zhang Dali punched himself once. Suddenly, the system chimed with a notification the moment he struck himself. The miracle healing fist was still effective. Zhang Dali was completely stunned, and he shot to his feet in excitement. Thuong Tiu Chang had no idea what Dali was planning. Zhang Dali then punched himself in the chest again. Huang Feng and Thuong Tiu Chang watched bewildered. Has this guy gone insane? The system dinged with another notification. The miracle healing fist is effective. Zhang Dali's body was being healed. Zhang Dali was ecstatic. The feeling was absolutely incredible. As he felt his body being restored, he was filled with a new sense of hope. The heavens truly hadn't abandoned him. He was the protagonist after all. Huang Feng could only watch Zhang Dali's frantic movements with disdain. This is the classic sign of someone with a terminal illness right before they die. They go completely mad and act erratically. Zhang Dali smirked and began punching himself, repeatedly hitting his left side and then his right. Then he started hitting his back. Both Huang Feng and Thuong Tiu Chang were completely astonished. Thuong Tiu Chang rushed to intervene, trying to stop Zhang Dali from hitting himself anymore. Zhang Dali shoved Thuong Tiu Chang's hand away, exclaiming that he was treating his illness. Looking like a naive fool with sparkling eyes, Zhang Dali told Thuong Tiu Chang that his terminal illness could be cured. Then, ignoring everyone, he continued to punch himself. Thuong Tiu Chang stood frozen to the spot, his heart aching. He gently pleaded with Zhang Dali to stop hurting himself once again, grabbing his hand to stop the motion. He told him that if his time was up, he should at least go peacefully instead of harming himself. Zhang Dali wasn't having any of it, pointing at Thuong Tiu Chang and yelling at him to let go. Whoever tries to stop me today, I'll fight them to the death. Huang Feng, watching from the side with his arms crossed, advised Thuong Tiu Chang to just let him be. It's better to let Zhang Dali vent a little. He's suffering a massive blow, so don't shatter his last remaining illusion. Just let Zhang Dali believe his terminal illness can be cured. Helpless, Thuong Tiu Chang let go of his hand. A moment later, Zhang Dali continued to punch himself wildly until he grew exhausted and collapsed onto the ground, wiping away his sweat as a worried Chang Xiaobai looked on. She asked Zhang Dali how he felt, and he joyfully declared that he was completely cured. Chang Xiaobai's jaw dropped in surprise, but she could only sigh in resignation and decide to play along with Zhang Dali. Zhang Dali leaped up excitedly, boasting that his illness was practically cured, and he was now in peak physical condition. Chang Xiaobai clearly thought Zhang Dali had lost his marbles, so she turned to Huang Feng to ask what on earth they should do now. Huang Feng smirked, realizing the only solution was to decisively shatter Zhang Dali's delusion once and for all, so he stepped forward to interrupt. He cut Zhang Dali's celebration short, stating firmly that his condition was in a critical state and completely beyond saving. He advised Zhang Dali to stop talking nonsense. But this only infuriated Zhang Dali, who insisted he was perfectly healthy with the strength of 2 tigers. Even if Huang Feng was a doctor, he had no right to put a curse on him like that. Zhang Dali pounded his chest, affirming that his illness had been treated. Cured Dr. Huang, however, refused to back down, adamantly insisting that Zhang Dali was a lost cause and telling him to go home and buy a coffin in preparation for his final day. Zhang Dali roared in fury, cursing Huang Feng as a quack doctor for being so insistent. That he was a dead man walking, Huang Feng was offended. This damn patient with a terminal illness had the audacity to call him a quack. Huang Feng adamantly stated that he could never make a misdiagnosis and demanded to know what exactly Zhang Dali had done. What had he done? Zhang Dali confidently pounded his chest, declaring it was because his name is Zhang Dali. Question marks filled the air above Huang Feng's head. What did that have to do with anything? Zhang Dali clenched his fists and flexed, proclaiming, "Because power creates miracles." Chang Xiaobai looked on completely at a loss for words. With that look on her face, she was 90% sure Zhang Dali was still not right in the head, but then he suddenly held out his hand. Huang Feng asked what he wanted, and Zhang Dali reminded him of their wager. Since Huang Feng had lost, he had to hand over the essence blood. Huang Feng let out a sigh, admitting that in his entire career as a physician, he had never encountered a case as miraculous as Zhang Dali's. Huang Feng stood up, conceded defeat, and told Zhang Dali to follow him outside. A moment later, Huang Feng led Zhang Dali and Chang Xiaobai to a room filled with bizarre specimens. Zhang Dali felt a chill run down his spine as he looked around and asked Huang Feng. But this place was Huang Feng introduced it as his personal laboratory, where he had dissected over 1,000 demonic beasts. Huang Feng pointed to a head on a display stand, saying their specimens were all exhibited here for everyone to admire. He mused that Zhang Dali's corpse was meant to be among them, but regrettably he wasn't fortunate enough for that honor. Dali felt a bit unnerved, realizing something was off here, and could only let out a few awkward laughs as Huang Feng walked over to a table. Inside, standing before 8 identical white jars, Huang Feng explained that he hadn't managed to collect much demonic beast essence blood because after a demonic beast dies, it usually self-destructs its essence blood, making it impossible for others to claim. Huang Feng then told Zhang Dali to choose one of the 8 jars he possessed inwardly. Huang Feng had already made a calculation. Thankfully, his most valuable vial of essence blood wasn't kept here, otherwise the loss would be immense if Zhang Dali took it. Zhang Dali shot a look at Huang Feng and then approached to inspect the vials of essence blood. Suddenly, his system interface chimed with a notification. Item detected. Demonic beast essence blood. Can increase cultivation by 3 levels. Zhang Dali was ecstatic. Was this his lucky day, or what? He had just been worrying about how to raise his level. What's with this guy's cultivation level? Seeing Trong Dai Luke taking forever. Huang Feng urged him to make a choice and get lost. Trong Dai Luke picked up a bottle, and the system notified him that this bottle of essence blood was a low-grade item incapable of increasing his cultivation. Only high-grade demonic beast essence blood could raise his cultivation level, and the system pointed out the exact location of that bottle. It was in the 3rd cabinet from the left. Trong Dai Luke understood and glanced at the smug Huang Feng behind him, realizing this old geezer had hidden the good stuff. Huang Feng got annoyed and once again urged Trong Dai Luke, reminding him he could only choose once and couldn't change his mind afterward. Trong Dai Luke rummaged through the drawer. Huang Feng, feeling a pang of guilt, asked what the hell Trong Dai Luke was doing. Trong Dai Luke pulled out another bottle of essence blood, just as he expected. He held it up and declared that he would choose this one. Huang Feng's face turned pale as he thought, "Crap, I'm screwed." Huang Feng trembled and ground his teeth in fury. He asked Trong Dai Luke how he knew where the premium item was hidden. Trong Dai Luke slowly stood up, smirked, and repeated the same line again. His nonsensical explanation was, "Because I am Trong Dai Luke." Huang Feng clenched his fists and sarcastically asked if Trong Dai Luke thought he could create miracles. Trong Dai Luke had no idea what Huang Feng was asking. His eyes were glued to the bottle of essence blood, so he just mumbled an "uh-huh" to brush him off. Huang Feng's anger flared, and he told Trong Dai Luke to stop spouting nonsense. This demonic beast essence blood was the most valuable of the entire batch. He had found it in the ancient ruins, so there was absolutely no way he would let Trong Dai Luke take it. Trong Dai Luke pointed directly at Huang Feng, telling the old man he couldn't back out of a deal. "That's not how things work." Huang Feng then tried to negotiate. He offered Trong Dai Luke the 8 bottles on the table in exchange for the single one in his hand. It sounded like a great deal, but Trong Dai Luke knew better. He didn't need them and even put on an extremely arrogant face, provoking Huang Feng until he snapped. The old man started to play dirty. If negotiation failed, he would just take it by force. Huang Feng summoned his giant sword, threatening to turn Trong Dai Luke into a display specimen. Trong Dai Luke wasn't one to be intimidated. He held the bottle of essence blood and threatened that if he was pushed any further, he would drink it all. Huang Feng challenged him, certain that Trong Dai Luke wouldn't drink it because demonic beast essence blood was incredibly volatile. For a human to drink it was suicide. After drinking it, Trong Dai Luke would be nothing more than a corpse. Trong Dai Luke held the bottle of essence blood, slightly hesitant, but then he opened it and chugged it down. Huang Feng and Thuong Tiu Chang were shocked. Seeing Trong Dai Luke's actions, their jaws dropped. Huang Feng couldn't believe this guy actually dared to drink it. Thuong Tiu Cheng also worriedly asked why Trong Dai Luk was so reckless. Hadn't he thought it through? Trong Dai Luk let out a burp. He wiped the essence blood from the corner of his mouth and commented that the taste wasn't bad. Just then, the cat system popped up with a notification. It announced that after drinking the demonic beast essence blood, Truong Dai Luk's cultivation had reached the 10th level of the spirit-gathering realm. Trong Dai Luk was ecstatic. He had actually leveled up. The spiritual power in his body felt much richer than before. He just needed one more level to reach the blood condensation realm. Trong Dai Luk felt absolutely awesome, so refreshed. Meanwhile, Huang Fong had no clue what had just happened. He still thought Trong Dai Luk was a goner and confidently declared that in 15 minutes Trong Dai Luk would explode into pieces. Trong Dai Luk put his hands on his hips and shot back, "And what if I don't explode?" He challenged Huang Fong, asking if he wanted to make another bet. Having been fooled once already, Huang Fong was still fearless and determined to bet again. He boldly declared that if he won, he would take Trong Dai Luk's corpse. Trong Dai Luk looked around and asked Huang Fong if he had anything else of value. Huang Fong took out a large blue egg from his drawer. This egg was something he had found in an ancient ruin. Though he didn't know which deep-sea demonic beast it belonged to, its appearance in the ruin meant it was certainly no ordinary beast. Huang Fong had tried to incubate the egg for 3 years without success. The harder it was to hatch, the more extraordinary it must be. Just then, the system displayed a notification, detecting a special demonic beast egg. After being cooked and eaten, it could increase one's cultivation level by 5 stages. Hearing about a 5-stage power-up, Truong Dai Luk's eyes sparkled with greed as he drooled and immediately bet on this egg. In his heart, Truong Dai Luk praised the doctor. This Huang Fong was a true saint, a personal piggy bank just for him. Meanwhile, Huang Fong was extremely smug, certain that Trong Dai Luk's corpse would soon be his. They waited for 15 minutes, but Trong Dai Luk's body still showed no reaction or any sign of exploding. Huang Fong started to sweat nervously, pointing at Trong Dai Luk in disbelief. He couldn't believe this was happening. A normal person using that much demonic beast essence blood would have exploded ages ago, so why hadn't Dai Luk exploded? Trong Dai Luk didn't bother to answer the question, instead giving his familiar catchphrase because he was. Trong Dai Luk. Huang Fong gritted his teeth in fury and tried to drag Trong Dai Luk away, insisting he had to examine Trong Dai Luk's strange physique right now. Huang Fong lunged at him with a pair of scissors, but Trong Dai Luk easily dodged and deftly snatched the egg from Huang Fong's grasp. Huang Fong's face turned pale, his expression changing a full 360 degrees. The essence, blood, and the egg, the most valuable items in his laboratory, were both taken by Trong Dai Luk. Huang Fong collapsed to the ground in despair, wailing that it was his 10 years of hard work. Trong Dai Luk twisted the knife. By rubbing salt in his wound, asking Huang Fong if he had anything else valuable, Huang Fong trembled with rage, his killing intent flaring as he yelled for Trong Dai Luk to get lost. He gave an ultimatum saying that unless it was Trong Dai Luk's corpse, he never wanted to see him again. Trong Dai Luk and Thuong Tiu Cheng returned to their dorm room to boil the egg. Looking at the bubbling egg, Thuong Tiu Cheng figured the egg had been cooking for 3 hours and wondered if it was done. Trong Dai Luk was also clueless and dipped his hand into the steaming, bubbling pot to check. The water is so cold it must not be cooked yet. Thuong Tiu Cheng also found it strange. This egg is too bizarre. It's been cooking for so long, yet the water isn't even hot. It seems all the heat is being absorbed by the egg. Trong Dai Luk took a sniff. A fragrant aroma was already spreading. Maybe it would be ready soon. The egg kept boiling, giving off a scent that wafted out of Trong Dai Luk's dorm. The aroma drifted over to the girls' dormitory where Zhang Quinthan and Hung Mi Lei were. At that moment, the 2 girls were chatting and laughing happily when suddenly Zhang Quinthan caught a whiff of the scent and paused the conversation to ask Hung Mi Lei if she smelled anything. Hung Mi Lei twitched her nose and sniffed. She could smell it too. Hung Mi Lei rubbed her stomach, the delicious smell making her feel hungry. 2 hours later, Thuong Tiu Cheng dipped his hand in to test the water's temperature again. But strangely, the water was still just as cold. Trong Dai Luk started to get annoyed and impatient. He just wanted to eat a boiled egg. Why was it taking so much time? Trong Dai-luk turned to ask for Thuong Tiu Chang's expert opinion on what they should do now. Truong Dai-luk glanced at the egg. This was a rare item that could increase his cultivation level by 5 stages, no matter what he had to. Chang Xiaobai crossed his arms and pondered that since this egg's origin was so extraordinary, it obviously couldn't be boiled by normal means. Xiaobai suggested using the 3-yang true flame and even swapping the water for oil to boil it, which started to confuse Zhang Dali. What the heck was a true flame? That name alone screamed high-level cultivation art, so who could possibly use it? Chang Xiaobai then named a person who could do it, Zhang Qingshen, who specialized in cultivating the heavenly fire. Great Tao and the 3-yang true flame was her signature technique. Over in the girls' dormitory, Zhang Qingshen and Xiong Mei Li had been waiting for a long time and couldn't take it anymore. Zhang Qingshen asked why the smell was getting stronger and stronger, while Xiong Mei Li's stomach grumbled in protest with the aroma right there. She was about to starve to death. Zhang Qingshen stood up, sensing something strange, as if the aroma was coming from outside their door. When Zhang Qingshen opened the front door, she found Zhang Dali and Chang Xiaobai standing there gleefully holding a pot with the egg. The moment Zhang Qingshen saw Zhang Dali, she immediately called him a pervert. Zhang Dali's hand, which was holding the pot, froze in place while Chang Xiaobai shot him a look that said, "I know all about it." Zhang Dali then spotted a familiar figure behind Zhang Qingshen and exclaimed, "Xiong Mei Li." Of course, Xiong Mei Li's expression was anything but friendly as she cracked her knuckles and threatened Zhang Dali, "You still dare to show your face here." Zhang Dali didn't dare make a rash move and quickly explained that he came to atone for his actions, and as a show of good faith he brought them something delicious. He then pointed to the fragrant egg in the pot while thinking to himself that he first needed to trick Zhang Qingshen into boiling it. Zhang Qingshen was surprised by their arrival, while Xiong Mei Li standing beside her couldn't stop inhaling the scent, exclaiming how amazing it smelled. Seeing Zhang Dali's seemingly sincere gesture, Zhang Qingshen realized the fragrant aroma they'd been smelling was coming from his direction, music.